Hi, Christopher. How are you?
I am blessed. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, thank you. Let me increase the volume. I just want to be able to hear you better. I'm
All
doing
right.
good. Excited for today's call. I have a feeling we're having one of our usual spiritual chats.
100%. Honestly, yeah, we've definitely collabed on our previous project together and we've connected just from that get, and we have these great conversations. So I'm really excited to have one live in front of everybody. But before jumping into that, and I see Meher is over here too, say I'm a little hi. I just want to introduce you to my audience. So Marianna is a phenomenal wellness coach, and she essentially even more, it's an ascension guide light worker, and she does a lot of work when it comes to the spiritual world and just how to help people to get to that next level. And I truly believe as a high performance coach, a lot goes within instead of without, something that you do at a very high level. And let me introduce myself to your community. My name is Christopher Dedeyan, and I am a professional speaker and a peak performance business and life coach. So that being said, Marianna, I'm seeing a couple little smokes. What do you have like lighting up next to you? Like, I'm sure it's something special.
Yes, I have some jasmine incense burning here. Jasmine is something very dear to my heart and my ancestors. So I burn it sometimes when I'm in client calls or in calls like this. It helps me just remember who I am and what I'm here to do.
So it's something that just essentially connects you to your being. It's like something they use as an anchor to really be present, I'm guessing.
Yeah, jasmine, cinnamon, coconut as well. These are all smells that trigger something for me. So I
That
utilize.
is cool.
Thank you.
How did you find out it triggered something in you, or even more than that, you kind of mentioned linked to your ancestors. Can you unpack that? What do you mean with that?
Of course, I was in a cacao ceremony, and for those of you who don't know what cacao is, basically it's the I have some. Let me just give me a second.
All right, in the meantime, we're gonna see what beautiful plants you have in the background and your little blue Buddha. That looks pretty cool though. The blue Buddha on the back looks pretty cool.
Thank you. So cacao looks like this, okay? And it is used, especially in Mexico, it's very known here, as a heart opener. So we do a lot of ceremonies where we grind the cacao and we make some paprika and water and create this like warm concoction that helps us to just tune into our hearts and really just connect within, right? As I was doing a cacao ceremony, I remember just out of nowhere, just smelling like cinnamon, almost like if it was like right here.
Oh
Cinnamon.
wow.
And then a few seconds later, I smelled coconut. And I am connected to like the goddess Amaya. And basically, that's like my Arishna. I don't know how to say it in other words, but basically, she is connected to water and to coconut, cinnamon. My ancestors are too. So as soon as I felt that experience, I just immediately knew that it was a confirmation for me to bring more of that, you know, into my
Okay.
world.
So I love that. And before we go into depth into like the spiritual world, the meditative world, let's take a step back. Tell us like how you got into meditation or how you got into the spiritual world, and what are some tools, some tricks, some methodologies that you could give to our listeners that are potentially interested to get into the spiritual world, but might be a bit like afraid because of the unknown. What would you speak to that?
So first of all, how did I get into the spiritual world? To be honest, it's been a long journey. Like I started when I was 14 years old. I used to like YouTube, like all kinds. Like I'm sure you can relate to that, right? It's like just YouTube conspiracy theories, and I don't know why, but the algorithm just like this girl's like they put me in alignment with a lot of spiritual gurus and spiritual mentors. So I would watch videos and it helped me really open my mind. But truly, when did I really get into that whole, different type of world that I like to call, the 5D? It's when I had my first awakening. I was literally at a breaking point in my life. I had rent to pay. I was going through a really bad breakup. I had my business at the time. It was called Harmony. I don't know if you remember, but basically I just had so much on my plate. And I remember one time I was laying in bed, overwhelmed with so much pressure and responsibility, and I had no idea how I was going to take care of all of it. And I remember just being at a breaking point, starting to cry and felt. And as you all know in the universe, ask and you shall receive. So that is when I first really tapped into my higher self. She overcame, like literally went into my vessel. This is the best way I can describe it, and took over. And ever since, I've been like this with my ancestors and my guides. And I've realized that we are not, and that whenever we do need help, we can call upon them, which is why I made it my mission to be able to guide people here on earth, being the middleman between the astral and the ground, right, where we're all living. Now, what would I say to people who are on their spiritual journey or about to start, but they're kind of a little bit afraid? I would say that the unknown is always scary, okay? The unknown is always scary. However, fear is not real. Fear is an illusion. And so if you are capable to overcome the veil of illusion and fully trust in knowing that nothing bad is going to happen. If anything, you're just going to get closer and closer to yourself, and you're going to feel more supported than ever. If you overcome that veil, then there's nothing, that can, like if you can bypass it, literally just like jump over and go, I'll be fine. On the other end, there's a beautiful, beautiful journey waiting for you.
Okay, so I love what you just mentioned over there. And like a lot of people find their spirituality or go within, find prayer, find religion or whatever when they are at a certain breaking point, or that at a point that is really difficult. And I 100% resonate with that, because that's when I found myself a lot more, went into personal development a lot more. It was when I was in that crossroad of like leaving one career, going to another, trying to figure out what I'm going to do in my life in my early 20s. So a lot of people have that aspect. And just to kind of highlight certain things that you mentioned, more for people that maybe are not well versed within these vocabulary, this world in itself, when you were talking about that inner guide within you that you're like this with, and that first time that kind of connected with you, and then from there you're listening, you could also call it your gut intuition. Like we have all of that within us. Some people have that connection so much stronger, just like Marianna, yourself, like you said, you see yourself as like that in between of the people that are on earth and the spiritual world, and how to connect them. And actually, in regards to that, I feel like I'm like the bridge between the spiritual world and the business world. And not a lot of people know this, but I'm very much spiritually based, but I have a very solid business background. And I get people from the business world to realize, hey, there's so much more you could go within and connect with. Now, one thing within this insight and this kind of connection, and my question to you is, because I recently had, actually almost over a year ago, a chakra healer come to my house and kind of check my chakras and just have that connection. And he was speaking to his guide, getting an information download from that person and giving it to me what I needed at that point. Is that something that you connect with your guide when you work with your clientele? Like, how does that process work? What do you exactly do with your community and clients?
That's a beautiful question. So basically, the way that I function when it comes to working one-on-one with somebody who's in need, like somebody who's actually transitioning, they feel a call. They're like, you know what? I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing in life, and I'm tired. I want to move in alignment with my truth. I feel miserable. I feel depressed. I feel, like life is sucking out of me every single day. When they book a session with me, now what happens is, immediately as I sit down with the person, I'm going to ask permission to channel a message for them through their guides and mine. And so we always start by just asking permission first. And then once that bond, that energetic bond is created, then I'm capable of receiving downloads, because I'm just connected energetically. So I receive downloads through my crown chakra, so that is like the highest chakra over here, that is connecting us to the spiritual world, anything that is the unseen, in other words. And because I'm clairsentient as well and clairaudient, I'm able to, through these downloads, as I'm channeling messages, hear the words that I need to vocalize and feel what the person is feeling. I'm also currently activating my third eye, not intentionally, it's just happening. Like right now, I'm seeing a white orb around you. It's starting to open up. And so very soon I'll be able to literally see energetically what is going on with people in front of me. So that's going to be like a higher tier of help that I'll be able to provide, right?
Let's go.
This is how it goes. Get the download, vocalize it, and that's like the energetic work that goes at play when I'm doing one-on-one sessions. But I also do some tarot, which I brought with me today for a session. I do oracle, I do tarot, to channel messages, to guide people, and we also reprogram the subconscious mind. So once we have the clarity, let's just say the person comes to me, they're confused, they're like, oh my God, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing in life. I don't know what I want. We channel messages for them through their heart, through my guides, to their guides. And then once we know what is going on, right, what's happening in their world, then after that, if we get to the core, which is going to come usually within the one session, then I'll tell them the how. And the how is by reprogram. So I incorporate, subconscious reprogramming as well to allow them to really be like, this is not your truth. Your truth is you are worthy. Your truth is that you have unconditional possibilities all around you, that you can tap into these timelines whenever you want. So I help them to reprogram that mindset. And lastly, we release with a somatic practice. Now, as human beings, we store trauma in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go and you see a therapist, right, sometimes you're going to talk, and this happens in my sessions. People literally come and they express. They sometimes remember that they've been abused when they were 2 years old. Now, this can be quite shocking for a person if they completely forgot, but that was like the puzzle piece they needed to unblock something. They re-trigger themselves in a session with me. And it's necessary, it's part of the journey, but the way that I make sure I leave, completely feeling good and not triggered and overwhelmed is we finish off with a somatic practice to release the trigger, release the trauma, and they usually end up feeling much better. So I don't know if I, answered the whole question, but I gave you a whole journey of what I do and how I help.
Yeah, okay, so you definitely did. There's a couple of things I want to unpack there. So just in regards to the aspect of when you're working with people, it triggers certain aspects that they did not remember or they had repressed for years is so true. When I did my 10-day silent meditative retreat, Vipassana, throughout that process of legit overdoing like 100 hours of meditating in 10 days and not speaking at all, no interaction, things came up within me that I had completely forgot about and did not think that it was important, and to a point that it really affected me. So you have to have this healing process of letting go. And I don't think so much now our society, but back, or I guess our parents and a bit like before that, we had that ideology that we repressed our feelings, repressed our emotions, and pushed it out of the way. But that repressing doesn't leave. It's like a wound that stays within you, which was what you're explaining. Now, another part that I want to kind of ask you about that you mentioned, so you have this download, and then from that download, you kind of let the universe use your vehicle to give the information to the person in front of you, what they need. But now you're having it in that visual sense, and you were saying you're actually connecting with your third eye, and you're seeing this aura around me, or this white light around me. What does that mean exactly, or what do you see when you go into that third eye in that regard, specifically in this situation?
This is really big for me. I'll tell you why. Okay, it's opening. It's not open yet because my chakras were not fully aligned yet. So when it started realigning from the root all the way up, then my third eye was like, okay, it's time to open up, right? It's time to fully blossom. It would have been unsafe for me to have my third eye open if my root wasn't fully grounded, because I would start seeing a lot of stuff. So if I was in a fear mentality, I would invest in creating even faster this type of thing, and I would see it, and it's not pleasant. So why is this big? In a sense, it's an extra tool that I can use to understand who's in front of me. And sometimes, people don't necessarily have the awareness of what's going on in their inner world. That's why they're sitting in front of me. They don't know, and they want to know. They want the clarity. So being able to see this orb around them, once it's fully open, it's not open yet, but once it's fully open, that white light that I'm seeing around everything, I'm seeing around my bottle right now, I'm seeing around myself right now, I'm seeing around you right now, I'm seeing around my phone right now, is going to be expanded, and I will be able to see the energetic frequency. I'll be able to see vibrations.
Let's go.
So this helps me right now. Like, I can tell if somebody's nervous, or when I'm doing somatic practice, right, at the end of my calls, I see when they're releasing, because I can see the energetic vibration of them literally brighter and brighter and brighter. So that helps me to know, okay, it's working, they are releasing. So this is how it's going to be functional in the, the guidance and being able to.
Yeah. So I love that you're talking about this in the aura around every single individual, not every single individual, like you mentioned, everything. You were like looking at your bottle, your phone, and all that stuff. And that comes to the basics of just physics, right? Like everything's made out of atoms. We're all atoms, right? And if you look at an atom, it's 99.99999% empty space. That's 13 nines after the dot. But all that empty space is not actually empty, it's energy. So even though we could touch ourselves and we're saying almost an atom is like literally empty, think about the aura that's around us that we have access to tap into. And what you're saying is that you're able to see that aura and the change within the aura because you're connected with your chakras. Now, you were saying that you're not necessarily aligned. So what do you do to get aligned? Is it through meditation? Is it through the practice that you're going through? Is it just like kind of taking time to kind of level up your vibration and your frequency so then you have that tool as well to be really all the chakras in line from the bottom to your crown chakra?
Mm-hmm. Now I would say I am, because my third eye wouldn't be opening if I wasn't. However,
Okay.
do that, right? Because it's a process. There's so many different ways. Like what you did, it's a great way to align your chakras, right? When you have the energetic work, Reiki, in other words, to rebalance out everything and remove blocks, or just reopen them properly. That's one way. Grounding yourself, doing meditation, breath work is another way. Yoga is another way as well. Different help out, making sure the breath is naturally flowing in your body. The cleanse that I'm doing helps. I wouldn't say it aligns your chakra, but here's what I would say. It helps to clear your gut. And when you think of like energies moving through you, it needs to start from the root and go all the way up to the crown. So if you have your your sacral blocked, just filled with like shit, in other words, happens is there's a lot of fogginess around that area and it creates that blockage. So it helps to do cleanses like that to stay elevated. Another thing as well, which is like a recent download I got, it's cut down, if you can, anything that is dead. Okay, when you're consuming something dead, you don't realize it, but inviting that into your vessel. And because if you believe in energy, not everybody does, but if you do believe in energy, what's going on is you are bringing in the vibration of fear and death and everything that happens. Some of these animals were raped, some of these animals were tortured, killed. You are consuming that energy into your vessel. And so help align yourself. One way to help with that is to clear that and to consume as much color as you can in the form of juices so you can cleanse your vessel. Right now I'm tapping into my heart chakra by consuming green, but I got beetroot right now. Like I try to mix in like turmeric and ginger and lemon and pineapple juice, anything I can to mix in the colors in my body, in my vessel. That helps too.
Okay, so I definitely love that conversation because that's something I'm aware of. Probably don't bring it as much as to what you do in your diet, but I'm very much aware of the energetic feel of food and what you consume energetically lasts. So the way I kind of go about it is if you're eating something that you could leave on your counter and it's there for weeks on weeks on weeks and it doesn't change, energetically that's dead. Now you're bringing the other aspect of, imagine you're eating a meat, like you said, an animal, and it wasn't treated the best way. Energetically, unfortunately, when that animal died, probably died at a chaotic vibration. Just think about it, right? You murdered or whatever the case is. There are some animals that were done in a more humane way, let's call it, and energetically maybe they're more aligned. So be aware of what you're consuming in that regard, not only for the food, the quality, but energetically, which is very interesting in that regards. Marianna, I kind of want to bring it back to the cards because I'm very intrigued, me personally, about the card reading, something that I don't know about, something that I've thought of, and I'm dabbling in the idea of like going into seeing somebody such as yourself and doing the card reading. What are certain advantages to do that? And what I mean by advantage, let me put it more pinpoint. Personally, I'm going to be very transparent. I have a fear of doing the card reading if it's going to look like for me in the future towards something that I don't want to necessarily see. And if I see it, do I have a chance to like kind of switch it? So what are like what are certain like approaches that you get with people that are coming to you in regards to the card reading? What are the fears attached to it? What can you unpack about that aspect a bit more?
I love that you asked this question because I believe in that too. I've seen a lot of tarot readers in my life because I've always been curious, right? Like, oh, like what's going on right now? Is that gonna last? Is it right? And as a reader myself, I fully respect these like three key components when I do readings. The first one is I don't predict the future. I believe in infinite possibilities. So when I'm sitting in front of someone, I always say, I'm going to guide you in accordance to the immediate future. Like what is right now the best decision in this current plane, right? But when they ask me like, oh, is this person my husband? I always say, I can't answer that. I can't answer. You know the truth. So if you're asking, chances are the answer is no, right? If you need that balance outside. But I'm not going to tell you that you're going to marry that person because there's an infinite amount of possibilities. And guess what? I do not want to hold that karmic weight on my shoulders to know that I'm very aware of the responsibility that I have and the impact I can make on someone else's life. And so if I see something, even if I do see something and I know it's like a clear, like, just no for now, I'll make sure to vocalize for now in this plane. Things can always change. You evolve, you change, and as a result, your life will transmute and the situations will too. So that's
Okay.
so that's the first thing. Now, second thing is I only channel love and light. I do not believe in like channeling demon and spirits or any type of extra source. I'm fully aware of how I don't want my person, you know, or whoever's in front of me to feel unsafe. I remember going to see tarot readers and just being so like, who are they channeling? Like, who is providing them with the information, right? And so as a result, that's the second rule I go by when I do a reading. It's when I tune into your channel, like when I tune into your channel, your vessel, your energetic field, I ask permission first from your higher self, your angels, your anyone who's in the astral realms protecting you, shielding you, guiding you. Have a prayer before I start. And then when you say, okay, we can proceed. And at the end of each session, after the somatic practices, we release the energetic bond and make sure that you get your energy back and I get my energy back. And I notice that's something that a lot of tarot readers don't do. So you go back with the fogginess of the other person's energy. And if they're not mindful, you know, I cleanse, I have my Palo Santo between each session, in between, like on myself, on the person. Why? Because energy is real. And when you leave, even though you got your answer, right, that temporary answer from that tarot reader, you're leaving with her or his energy. And that person, if they're not mindful with their energetic field and they're tapping into different energies like 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day, you're leaving even more confused and even more chaos. So that's super key, is something I do as well. Just to reassure you, something I start by vocalizing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, like after that experience that I had at Vipassana, a 10-day meditative retreat, when we were allowed to speak the last day with the people that were there, because we're only allowed to speak to them the first like 30 minutes of the first day, and then after that, the last like half day or whatever the case is, they invited us very strongly not to shake hands or whatever, because for a long process, we were connecting with our inner selves and we were so absorbent to energy, and you don't want to cross-pollinate energies because they might be fighting through something, they might be fixing something, and you vice versa. So there could be that counterbalance in there. So it's interesting that when you do that, because you have to be very connected with, to like you said, with their higher purpose, their higher guides and angels, and you have to connect with them, but at the same time you have to kind of disconnect at a certain point, which is what you're doing at the end. So okay, very interesting. So I kind of get it. So you kind of connect, and then once you pull out the cards, what I understand, the cards kind of tell you certain things, and then with the connections that you have, you fill in certain blanks with the particular present future that can happen, which is the quantum possibility of this present moment. If he decides to do something else, or they decide to do something else afterwards, the possibilities, like you said, are endless. Essentially, that's what I kind of understand. Is that correct?
I'm like the transition They come to me, right? We all manifest situations in our lives. They come to me because they're at a crossroad in life. And so I'm the pillar between navigating left and right.
Okay.
My mission when I do that, in whatever reading I do, is to make sure that I navigate them towards alignment with their heart, alignment with their truth, alignment with what feels embodied in themselves, like what would make them the happiest. And that's why, you know, once again, it's really important who you're working with and the intention behind that person. Something I do want to, I'll give you tarot. I feel like I started talking a lot about like the rules and everything that's key. But what is tarot? Like, how does it work? Are you curious to know? Like, is it the cards? You know, where do you get your message?
100%. I mean, if you want to fill that in, go for it. I would love to hear.
I'll be fast, but in a nutshell, and that's a misconception a lot of people have about tarot. It's not the cards that are telling you the truth. Okay? When you ask a question, or when I'm tapped into someone's energy and I ask a question for them, I immediately get the answer. It's just we're literally co-creating every single second of our lives in this plane. And so this moment in time where the person is sitting in front of me asking me a question because they're at a crossroad and they need to go left or go right and they're not sure is kind of like pre-done in a way. And so when the question is asked, I already have the download of what the answer is. It's just the answer comes through each message because I'm able to allow the visuals, and this is the key in tarot, to guide me to vocalize what I need to say. So tarot for me is utilized as a tool, not as it's a tool. The guidance comes from within. It comes from our own inner wisdom. And so when we look at each card, each tarot spread is different. And I have a book for you that would be really interesting if you want to tap into more tarot and using it as a tool to, you know, connect to yourself. Each card carries, symbolisms that can be interpreted in so many different ways, and they're done strategically for that. They're created with the intention to trigger something in your subconscious that will allow you to tap into that message faster and vocalize it. So you'll notice sometimes I'll read a card. I've had at least 200 reads so far. And sometimes the same card that I would read in X, Y, and Z person will be read in a completely different way because my consciousness, my RAS actually, will be focused on validating the inner knowing that I just got. So my focus will go on like the ball instead of the one. And I'll be able to transmute that message this way. So that's definitely key here. The symbolism behind each card. You can look at the colors, you can look at the symbols, you can look at the people, the faces, you can look at the animals or the plants, if there's water, if there's no water, there's an infinite amount of ways you can read each card. But the important thing is to make sure that you have the clear vessel to be able to interpret it with clarity and not let your own judgment cloud the way. And so that's going to be hard.
Okay, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like you said, the fact that it's a tool, especially that you're somebody that's already very like intuitive and that kind of guides you, and every card you read it differently or it speaks to you differently with the person that's in front of you. And to kind of hone this in, what I'm seeing over here, what I've realized in this spiritual world, I think it's a good balance between the Western world and the Eastern world. And there's a lot of things we can learn that we could just heal ourselves with the Eastern world before going into Western medicine. And Western medicine has its place, like by all means, like if you fall down and your bone is sticking out of your body, you could pray on it, wish on it. It's just not going to go in. Towards there's a lot of things that could happen when it's internal. And these are all things that are like scientifically proven. Just go study epigenetics. Dr. Drew Dispenza talks about it and so on. So I 100% understand that alignment and that connection in that regards. I love that you're kind of unpacking this. So Marianna, I just want to be respectful for your time here. We're coming to time. I want to ask you this last thing is, where can the people reach out to you if they're interested to get a card reading, if they're interested to know more about this, if they're going through that crossroad and potentially they're like, oh yeah, this person could potentially help me, guide me towards that journey, where can they reach out to you?
The best way to go about it is just, since we're already on Instagram, to go directly on my Instagram page, The Ascension Nation, and click on the link in my bio. And then in there you'll have the option. If not, and this is your first time doing this, which most likely it is, you can DM me $50 Cosmic and get 75% off your first reading. Normally it's $250, it drops down to $50. So you get like the value of like understanding like what is going on in your life. And I highly
Oh,
recommend
wow.
anyone who is curious about, one-on-one mentoring with me, but doesn't know, yet if they're comfortable putting that amount. Give yourself a chance and just DM me $50 Cosmic at theascensionnation.com and you'll get your personal link. Yeah.
I love that. First of all, thank you for sharing that for our audience. And yeah, 100% suggest if somebody's like, thinking about it, whatever, start off with that amazing rebate of $50. And then from there, like you said, you'll see if there's something that you guys can continue working together or whatever the case is. So I love that. Marianna, awesome job with everything that you're doing. I feel like as we know, we're both chatterbacks. We could talk about this for so long. So I'll definitely have you on in a further time. But yeah, just keep on doing your amazing work. You're definitely helping a lot of people. I appreciate you.
And thank you for having me. I wish
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.